you've come for the story, well, you're in luck, because tonight is a great one. It's called Baby. Come this way. Did you bring the jammy dodgers? Veronica had only been informed one thing about her next client, and that is that he required specialist treatment. She'd been in the profession years and had come across everyone from bootlickers that wanted to be told they were worthless to urine worshippers that worshipped you've got it. Oh, but then there were those who just wanted to spend all night long with a sob story, a life story, crying, boring. In her opinion, these were the worst. Veronica specialised in fetishes. She found these to be a lot more lucrative than just a little slice of hanky-panky. She never considered herself a prostitute, more an exorciser of demons, an autoerotic counsellor there to keep the wolves at bay. She drew on a king size as she pulled up outside the lavish property in Knightsbridge, an area home to the more, let's say, opulent residents of London. And if she was wanting to make a quick buck out of fetishes, well, there was plenty on offer in the swankier parts of London. The lucky few that didn't need to go 10 rounds with the morning rush hour just breezed by. A pinstriped man with a suitcase gave a discerning but yet keen stare. A rabble of boho mothers all jogged by, pushing their babies about to the sound of an enterprising trainer. At 54, Veronica's days of motherhood were long gone, lasting that of only 2 years. You see, the authorities were not very impressed with the environment in which the tot was being raised, and the suspension of motherhood only led to more depravity within her and the biological father, William. Cutting ties with toxic relationships, drink and drugs had taken a few years. Well, it does, doesn't it? But here she was, all clean and sparkling and spanking bankers for a first-class wage. She floored her cigarette out halfway and rang the doorbell.
Please don't tell me.
Clients in Knightsbridge always meant good money, but if there were pillars outside the house, you were guaranteed the dosh. She listened, and she heard these little footsteps coming to the door, followed by chains, more chains, and then unlocking. And there stood a diminutive, mousy-looking maid. Oh, just like you'd imagine a maid to look. 1930s. Oh, nice little dress, little hat. You've got the idea. Come in, said the maid, making very little eye contact. The hall was prim and minimalist, with the only outstanding feature being a vintage telephone table. In Veronica's experience, the cleanliness of the hall was always a reliable gauge to the depth of the perversity that would follow. He's a baby, said the maid rather abruptly. What? Sorry? Said Veronica, with a slight nervous chuckle in her voice. He's not a real baby, but he likes to be treated as such, said the maid. Veronica wasn't really sure how to respond. I mean, she'd never dealt with a man-baby before. He has a room built downstairs in the basement, which makes him look a lot smaller than what he actually is, said the maid. And you could tell that she found this part of the job mortifying. Oh, right. How much have I been paid for this? Said Veronica. She wanted to hear a sizable amount for this job. The maid put a hand into a pinstripe pinny and pulled out an envelope and handed it to Veronica. Oh, Jesus. How long is this job going to last exactly? She'd never been paid so much for a job in her entire life. 1 hour, said the maid. You have had experience before with babies, I take it, said the maid, clutching the door handle. Yes, a long time ago, said Veronica, shooing away the ghosts of the past. He wears a mask, said the maid. It's for confidentiality. And with that, before Veronica could even think about it, the hallway was plunged into darkness. Veronica slid her hands down the narrow walls as she descended the steps to the basement. And when she hit the bottom, she hit yet another door. Well, here goes nothing, she thought, as she opened it and entered. What the maid had described to be the baby room hadn't really done it any justice whatsoever, because everything was indeed twice the size as what it should be, giving the impression that you were just a small little baby. Even with her high heels on, the chest of drawers was mammoth, making her feel ever so small. And then she saw it, a huge mobile, spinning round and round above the cot, twinkly, lovely little lullaby sounds. But then she gulped when she saw, in the cot, the man baby, with his back to her, staring. Hello, said Veronica, as she crept closer to the cot. I mean, she may as well earn the money while she was here. But the silence that met her, the lack of response, soothed her and unsettled her. As she got nearer and nearer, suddenly the music stopped and the man baby began sobbing into his pillow. He was wearing a white baby grow, and, as forewarned, he was wearing a mask, a black leather mask with the eyes and the mouth hole cut out so you could hear his sobbing. Shh, 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 shh. Don't cry, she said as she approached the cot, and surely enough, the man baby stopped crying and turned around. And it was at that moment they first saw each other for the first time with their very own eyes, and his little reddened eyes lit up as he immediately grinned, showing off an array of an oddly produced crowd of yellow-shaped teeth. He grabbed the bars and started to shake them excitedly. Veronica noticed a ball at the side of the cot. Hey, would you like to play ball? She said to the man baby, thinking it might distract him. Said the man baby, with his tongue hanging out like a dog. Veronica started to get a little bit hot under the collar, tucked off a coat and covered it over a pile of toys and dolls in the corner. There were 3 bars missing from the end of the cot, which allowed freedom for the man baby to crawl across the living room carpet. Oh, Veronica didn't like this. The movement made her feel a little bit uneasy. And suddenly, the man baby demanded the ball. She picked up the ball and she chucked it at him to catch. Oh, and he caught it and chucked it straight back, and it missed her face by an inch. She nearly had her eye out. But luckily, the man baby got bored of balls pretty quickly and headed over to the corner of the room to play with his toy cars. Veronica just zoned out and reminded herself what it was that got her into this position in the first place. You see, once they removed their child, she did try to patch things up with her husband, but the empty void, it was just too great. Sure, they were hedonistic. Sure, they were reckless, but they did love that kid. But that kid was now gone. If anything, Veronica found solace in the fact that she was probably being looked after by a much safer and more reliable adoptive family. But where was the man baby? Oh, he was over there. He'd got bored of playing with trucks, and now it was time for him to play with the dolls. Oh, you want to play with the dolls? She said. And the man baby immediately rummaged through the dolls and found his favourite, that of a middle-aged man. How peculiar, thought Veronica. And then stopped laughing when she saw that the face of the doll looked just like that of her ex-husband, William. Can I look at the doll? She said, and reached out for it. Ah! And he bit her hand, nearly taking off the middle finger. Oh my God! Give me the doll, give me the doll! The man baby went backwards to the cot, clutching the doll. Clutching the doll, clutching the doll. Oh, screw this, she thought, and she stood up and she grabbed a coat from the pile of dolls. And that's when she saw it. And her heart stopped, because the doll at the top of the pile of dolls looked just like her. Suddenly the door behind her opened. It was the maid. Thank heavens for that. Is everything all right? I heard a scream, said the maid. No, everything's not all right. The freak's bit me. The freak has bit me. Look. She then went to point at the man baby, who was now back in his cot, pursuing with his hissing sound. I found this doll that looks exactly like my ex-husband, William, and I found this doll that looks exactly like me, she said, and she gave the doll to the maid, who looked at it and said, You're right. It does look just like you, doesn't it, Veronica? And started to unzip the back of the doll and remove the cotton wool and the stuffing. Veronica couldn't move, couldn't speak, and blood began to drip from each nostril as the maid continued to pluck and pluck and pluck. There was a part of me that was hoping you'd recognise me, Mother. But you haven't seen me since I was 2, said the maid, barking into Veronica's ear. Veronica couldn't move, couldn't breathe, was still as a statue, but yet had blood dripping from either nostril and was completely conscious to the terror that was occurring, unfortunately for her. Get back to bed, Dad! And with that, he retracted straight back to the cot and cooperated without a moan or a whimper. Isn't he great? I got him 2 weeks ago. You see, the family I was given to for adoption, well, let's just say they taught me a thing or two about the darker things in life. The maid turned before leaving the creche and said, You both didn't want to bring me up, instead choosing a life of drink and drugs and prostitution. Well, now you can both have a life of no responsibility forever. The next morning, Veronica and her ex-husband both lay smiling and giggling in their baby grows in the cot. Go, go, ga, 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 ga. As a nursery rhyme played above.